Journeys Ahead, Lineage. Chapter 4, Bonding Exercise. Written and narrated by T.S. ProArt. Thanks for taking us out for lunch today, guys. I am starving. The orange-haired musician thanked both Tucker and Sarv, as they, as well as Void, alongside Nock and Kot, all rested and ate at a large table. The group of oddballs had decided to go out for lunch that day, at what was dubbed as the best pizza joint in Aurora. No problem, hun. It's been a while since we've all been on a triple date. The massive Thorn exclaimed with a smile as she took a large bite out of a pizza slice. That's what this was in truth. Sarv and Tucker, Void and Jida, and Nock and Kot, the living embodiment of a friend group made up of relationships. "Pieces! This pizza pie is larger than my head!" Nock muttered as he compared the slice in his hand to his face, showing that it covered a good quarter of it. They don't play around with their dishes, Rogers. It's just how they roll. Kot pronounced with a smirking expression as he too took a bite out of a slice of pizza.
Wait a second. If your head is disconnected from your body, then how the hell do you eat?
Tucker asked with a curious glare in his slanted eyes. I'd rather not say. It's a bit personal, if I'm being honest. Kot replied amidst a chuckle, while continuing to bite into his pizza. Through all the chit-chat and conversation, Void found himself to be in a silent state. Through it all, he was merely poking at his food with gentle jabs by a fork. His mind was like an hourglass, one that was constantly being flipped back and forth as his thoughts crumbled from side to side. The grains of sand within his mind were Void's opinions on everything. Resurrecting the sparks, hope for that, yet also prime fear for it. The unbelievable truth in his brother and friend still being alive, yet feeling different all the same in some aspects. And then the note from Joby. Don't trust them. Those three words screamed and clawed within the spark's brain as he tried to understand what she was trying to convey. Was she referring to the three sparks? Or something else? The conductors? The mind of a child was always a conflicted one, Void rationalized. Maybe once he got the chance, he would ask her to explain. Hey, you okay? You've barely touched your pizza. Jida asked as she reached a hand out and placed it upon her husband's, resting it atop the tablecloth.
Yeah, you've just kind of been staring, my friend. Is everything alright?
Mentioned Tucker as he adjusted himself in his seat. It looks like you're trying to blow up your pizza with your mind. Kot joked while Nock tilted his head. Huh? Oh, yeah, I'm fine. Void answered with an audible pause. Just a little dazed, I guess, from these last 2 days. The spark tirely explained while rubbing the back of his head. They could all see it in his face. As much as Void tried to hide it, he was still taken aback by all that had transpired. Nobody could blame him, though. How could anyone with a sane mind process something such as finding a loved one once thought to be dead to be alive, and just brush it off within a few days? It was unrealistic of him to act normal, and they knew this. Void, we're all here for you if you need to talk about the other day. We all know it was most certainly a lot. Sarv expressed in a comforting tone, leaving Void to just slump in his seat in response. I'm just so confused, I guess. Believe me, I'm more than willing to help them in reviving the sparks, but their methods, as much as they assure me it's alright, it just scares me deep down. Void admitted before eyeing everyone at the table. Do I trust my brother? Of course. Do I trust the process? I don't know. Guys, these conductors, the reformat are just up and crashing without explanation. I'm just worried for their safety, as well as everyone here at this table. Scratch that, I'm worried for this entire world. Void expressed before leaning on the table with his head in his hands. So much was just dumped on me at once is what I'm trying to say. And I've really been struggling to make sense of it all. Void finished through stuttering words before sighing deeply. Void. Jida solemnly spoke before wrapping her arm around his shoulder and pulling him in close.
Your emotions are completely understandable, my friend. Seriously, they are.
Tucker assured before taking a swig from a glass cup of soda.
We're all here for you, Void. Always. If you need to speak more, then by all means. If not now, you can always talk to me in private.
Nock added before wiping some pizza sauce off the side of his face. For all of us. Always. You don't have to dwell on these thoughts alone. I know what I said the other day about helping your fellow Sparks, but if you need to rest, I'm sure they'll understand. This is still your call, remember? Jida reasoned before pulling Void in close and rubbing his head. Slowly looking back up, Void simply just nodded his head in a grateful gesture before sitting upright and leaning against Jida with a sigh. I don't deserve you guys, he mentioned before looking down and finally picking up his slice of pizza. I'll tell Cor that I'll take a backseat for a day or so more. Maybe just spend the day with him and the reformatter to just discuss, I guess. I don't know, I think that may ease some. Suddenly stopping to the sound of the restaurant TV booming to life, Void, as well as the others, turned their attention to its screen, seeing the words "Breaking News" in big bold letters. The next thing they knew, the screen cut to a Thorn reporting from a deserted landscape that was full of native structures as well as pink and white stone pyramids.
Hello? Everyone, I'm reporting from the Great Lands of Soulship to discuss this. Whoa!
Within the background of the live feed, Void and the others watched in shock as a massive, wriggling form burst from the sands in an arched shape. For only a moment, they could see dark, yellowish-brown skin, and what looked to be a chunk of yellow crystal surface and then descend back into a massive array of red velvet sands.
Beezus, a massive creature of some kind. We are unsure of what. It has suddenly surfaced from the sands and it's causing panic to the nearby city.
The reporter was then cut off again as a blurry Titan-sized form burst from the sands and then went back in once more, leaving the reporter and their cameraman to start running.
The citizens of the nearby city gods are described as... Oh!
They screamed as a large yellow beam shot up from the sands like a beacon, destroying a passing fighter jet and having what Void recognized to be a parking lot-sized Nova rune at its blast point. The camera then cut to black, for the screen went to a "We'll be right back" card. Oh my, that's my home country, Sarv said with shock before raising her feathered hand up to her beak.
That wasn't another snake, was it?
Nock asked as a series of murmurs erupted in the conversation from other pizza enjoyers. Not even a minute after this broadcast ceased, the loud voice of Evelyn suddenly came through the matter extractor that was still attached to Void's metallic body, and she sounded panicked.
Void, we located the other conductor, and it's bad. We need you here now.
She bellowed as the audible sounds of both Cor and Atlas arguing could be heard in the background. And just like that, the line cut and all returned the murmurs. Looking up, everyone eyed Void in shocked silence. They all had heard Evelyn, and they all recognized the Nova rune that came from the sand. Slowly looking back up and taking a long breath, Void gently stood tall and quickly sputtered out, I gotta go. He expressed in a worried tone as he then leaned down and kissed Jida on the cheek. Wait, Void! Jida exclaimed, but the spark had already turned heel and left the restaurant in panicking steps. Void! She shouted again, before slowly attempting to get up, but falling back down due to her baby weight. You don't have to... Ugh. She weakly groaned, before Sarv came over and placed a hand upon her shoulder. Let him go. He'll come back. It seems urgent. She reasoned, leaving Jida to shake her head. Me and my stupid words of advice, Jida said, feeling a tad responsible for pushing Void and helping the other sparks. If she had known the strain it would douse upon him, she wouldn't have suggested it to him to begin with. Be careful, she mumbled before caressing her stomach in a motherly manner as the contractions within seemed to get stronger. With his star-shaped portal opening and him sliding into the reformatter moments after, Void, with an uneasy set of thoughts, rushed his way towards the vat of matter, where Core, Atlas, and Evelyn had been discussing with conflicted nature.
Are you seriously suggesting that now?
Atlas asked as Void approached.
I understand it's a bad time to bring it up, but look at those M spikes. This world is the one.
Core spoke aloud as Atlas smashed his fist on the control deck.
How the hell do you even plan on telling him this after all those promises?
The four-legged spark said through these tense words that Void couldn't really make out from afar. As Core got ready to respond, he suddenly glanced over his shoulder and saw his younger brother approaching. Void! He exclaimed with surprise while getting the other two's attention.
This discussion's far from over.
Atlas mumbled before nodding to the smaller spark with a greet until just up and leaving the room.
Atlas, seriously? We need you here!
Evelyn bellowed, leaving Void to just tilt his head in curiosity. Whoa, hey, what's going on between you guys? He asked as Core simply wiped his brow and sighed in annoyance.
Just science junk, Void. Conflicting science stuff you probably wouldn't even understand if I were to explain it in full.
Core expressed while Evelyn sighed and brought up the map of the world.
He's just stressed about the latest conductor. It's taken on a powerful form that, if we don't stop soon enough, the power cell itself will be lost.
Evelyn quickly explained as the map zoomed into the continent of Solgypt, all the way down to landing upon one of the world's greatest wonders, the Grand Pyramids of Gonza, also known as the Lands of the Blood Sand. I caught a glimpse of it on the news. Looked massive. Void mentioned through a stutter as everyone in the room stared on in deep thought.
The one here is dark matter conductor Ladon, a secondary powerhouse that confirms with Hercules. This one has always been a real pain in the ass to control, I'll be honest.
Core mumbled as a hologram of a yellow conductor appeared before view.
If we don't act now, that beast will tear apart the nearby city. Void, I'm gonna need your assistance in this one. Post haste.
Evelyn expressed before beginning to march her way to the other side of the room. I'm sorry, just me? That thing is... Like I said, it's massive. Void expressed while looking to Core, who just raised his hands up in a stopping manner.
Evelyn helped me and specialized in the creation of Ladon. She knows its in and outs more than I would. As much as I would care to join you two, I still need to stay here and repair the reformatter as well as calm Atlas.
Core explained, leaving Void to just stand there for a second in thought. I sincerely think this would need to take all four of us, Core. It's massive. It's like this big. Void explained while extending his arms out beyond their normal length.
I know. But, just look, if I'm not here, then things could be misplaced and all scattered about in the reformatter. Although 2 conductors are in, they still need to be maintained until the ship can hold them properly.
Core went on while making hand gestures. However, Void began to notice things about him. As Core continued to reason, his little brother caught the strange sight of slight droplets of ooze leaking from in between certain segments in his panel lines. They were black with hints of glowing orange within.
You understand, right?
Core finished, however, leaving Void missing the entirety of their reasoning's middle segment. Wait, are you bleeding? Void asked, gesturing to the strange liquid trickling through Core's metallic plates.
Am I bleeding? What are you... Oh, scrap. My apologies.
Core expressed before wiping himself off. What is that? Void asked again, now with a raised eyebrow.
Let's just call it a side effect to this upgraded body of mine. It's just an ugly sweat.
Core expressed while giving a tender smile towards his brother. Are you sure? Like, are you hurt? Do you need anything? Void asked, entering into a protective and concerned state. No, I assure you, it's just sweat. I'm just a little tense at the moment is all. Core justified himself before placing his hands on his hips and releasing a sigh. Are you sure? Void asked while locking eyes with his brother. Positive. Core answered as he turned and got ready to drop a portal for Gonza, but then suddenly stopped and turned back. Void, do you happen to have your axe on hand? Core inquired to know while leaving Void to tilt his head and bring the weapon forth. It's right here. Why do you ask? He inquired back as Core gazed upon its electronically buzzing build. Would you be alright without it for this mission? There's something that I would like to make for you. An upgrade, let's say. But for that, I'm gonna need to borrow this. Core expressed before holding out his hands. What do you mean by upgrade? Void asked before handing over his most trusted weapon. An idea came to me yesterday, and today I would like to see it through. Believe me, it's all for the benefit in your safety, as well as theirs. Core reasoned while referring to Jida and the rest of Void's newfound family. Well, I suppose I do have an arsenal up my sleeve. Void replied before placing the weapon in Core's mitts, making it look like a hatchet compared to his larger form. I assure you, it will be worthwhile. Core expressed with a nod and smile before clicking the button to open the portal. I hope so, just don't do anything drastic to her. Void asked with a half smile, leaving Core to just nod once more and hook the blade at his side. Come, little one. Let's not waste time. Evelyn exclaimed before crossing through. Look, I'm sorry for my tone, but just... Void, be careful. Please. Core asked of his brother before he left through the other side. Always am, always will. He answered before crossing through and entering into the other side of the world. As silence fell upon the reformatter, Core looked down to his weapon and released a bottled-up sigh, while then hearing the sounds of Atlas' footsteps returning. Sharp clackings of pinpointed metal came and went as Core's best friend began speaking once again. However, now in a more private environment. Is he gone? Atlas asked, leaving Core to turn around and gently nod. Yes, Atlas. You went with Evelyn. Care to continue this spitfest, huh? Asked the more authoritative Spark with a cross in his arms. Core, as much as I would love to see the Sparks walking among us again, I need you to pull your head out of your ass and look at the facts. You really want to do that to this world? Your brother's world? Atlas asked while pointing to the ground in a concerned manner. This world is a miracle in a sea of endless flukes and wastes of power. These M levels, this planet can finish this goal we set out upon ourselves years ago. We've done this to other worlds. Why are you suddenly conflicted about this one? Core asked with a deeply angered tone in his words. I understand what you mean, but this is Void's world, Core. Do you really just expect him to shrug that off when you tell him about what you plan to do? He's gonna lose his goddamn mind. Atlas expressed with concern, while Core simply groaned and turned back to the vat of matter. It's not like we're gonna kill his wife and those with them. They won't be in the crossfire, Atlas. You really think I'm going into this without thought for my own brother? Core asked before placing his hands on his hips. You're underestimating the contrast in your values. What about Jida and the others? There's a difference here compared to the other worlds, Core. We have what we need, yes. But is it really worth posing a threat in trust to our newly extended family? Atlas expressed before crossing his arms and looking to the floor. I'll figure out a way to best explain this to them. They'll understand the price taken is worth more in the end than this copy and paste of an already existing world. Void would understand. I have to believe he would. Cole replied, sounding dour in his own sense of the word. It was as though he were lying to himself.
Matira's might, Core. Look! You can keep acting like Void doesn't put the people first before himself. But you know as well as I do that this would only shatter him.
Alice returned while pinching the skin between his eyes.
I sincerely don't know how you plan to explain this without causing an uproar of some kind, but I hope you know what you're doing.
Alice expressed before lighting a cigarette and walking away in slow steps.
We're not monsters, Atlas.
Cor called out while looking to the floor. Stopping mid-stride, the four-legged Spark merely looked over his shoulder and said one last thing to his friend before turning in for the day.
Yeah, I agree. It's a great lie that tell ourselves.
Atlas finished before walking away and leaving Cor alone to dwell on his thoughts. As the large, orange-crested Spark turned around in silence to continue his work, Joby, being hidden and standing behind a wall, listened to the whole thing with Gluppy in her arms, now having the look of panic in her eyes.
Oh no, not again.
She whispered to herself before turning heel and running to her room in a cold sweat. Crossing through side by side, both Void and Evelyn found themselves walking out into a fairly tight alleyway into what could only be described as the suburban side of Gonza. Tons of small brick stacked buildings were around in vast numbers, being dawned in dark grays to orangish-red stone, akin to the ruby-red sands below their feet. Stained glass windows of yellow had all been settled within these little towers, but to none of the Spark's surprise, all had their curtains drawn. For the citizens, all the thorn species had been quickly shuffling and running southbound, away from the Grand Pyramids that stood defiantly a ways off in the distance. All the thorns were akin to both Sarv and Fofit, tall and large folk that had tons of feathers and colors to their character. Some carried suitcases, while others left as a family pack. Yet, the one thing they all shared outside of the wings and beaks was the look of terror in their eyes. As their little escape occurred, one of the larger thorns, a large bird with the look of an eagle accompanied by a thunderous gut, tripped and stumbled to the ground before the two Sparks. Quickly running over to aid this fellow, Void and Evelyn knelt down and helped the poor avian back upon his talons, albeit with slight strain. "Are you alright?" asked the smaller Spark, as the massive bird awkwardly brushed himself off with an accompanying nod.
Yes, but you two need to get out of here. The Heba comes for us all.
He bellowed before flapping his wings and taking off to the skies.
Hebai?
Evelyn asked as she sharpened her tail with a slicing click. Hebai. That's a name familiar to these lands, but I'm kind of blanking on it. It'll come back to me, though. Void mentioned before the two turned their sights towards the Grand Pyramids, knowing full well that's where they needed to go.
That's not too far off. Let's move,
boasted the sharp-tailed Spark as she detached her arm blades and then swung them forth, proceeding to cling to the sides of buildings and then launch herself to the next. Summoning forth his cloak, Void also sparked to life his two electrical hooks and followed suit behind his long-tailed ally. Evelyn, what was really happening between you three when I entered the Reformator? Atlas sounded really stressed. Void inquired as they both pulled themselves from building to building in dicing swings.
You seem to read emotions easily, sweets. But it wasn't anything to worry about. Just a personal matter is all.
Evelyn answered, but Void could still hear the strain in her voice. He knew there was more to the story. Are you sure that's all? It sounds like there's more to this than you're letting on. You can vent to me if you need to. The blue Spark assured as they both landed on a rooftop to take a breather.
Vent?
Asked Evelyn with a confused gaze whilst looking down to the smaller Spark. You know, to let off some steam, air out your brain. Holding words in will only make things worse. But if it's that bad, I won't force you to say anything. Void gently expressed before launching his hooks forward again and swinging to the next building, while now having a thoughtful Evelyn following in tow.
Listen, Sweets. Sometimes me, Atlas, and your brother, we just don't really see eye to eye all the time. We are a team, but as of late, things have felt more strained than I'd like to admit.
As Evelyn spoke, Void held his tongue to allow her to express all she needed to. This sounded more in line with an honest response, so he let her go on for as long as it was needed.
This goal of ours, it demands much sacrifice. One of those being okay in the head from time to time. It's been over 10 years with this one singular goal, and now it's finally in sight. But with that, we all have our own opinions on how we should approach it. That includes different views that can get extremely heated amidst discussion.
Nodding, Void and Evelyn landed to another rooftop, this one being not of your average architecture, but rather old ancient stone from many years ago. Sandstone pillars stretched up to a roof that had once hovered tall, leaving only crumbling rubble to remain. Even the moon shined down with a purple night sky. It was easy to forget that they were on the other side of the world. Sitting down upon this ancient stone and leaning back against one of the pillars, Void gestured for Evelyn to do the same. After a moment of thinking, she nodded and sat across from the spark. As she did, her tail coiled into a spring shape to act as a seat below her. It was quite funny to the other spark, but he held back the chuckle for the time being to discuss something else. Me and Cor were close to arguing yesterday. He told me he had spliced some of his DNA into the conductors and, I won't lie, it had me concerned for more reasons than I could count. Void revealed to Evelyn, who simply just nodded her head to this with an added cross in her arms.
I understand. Your brother can be a real handful at times nowadays. Honestly, he could easily start an argument with just one sentence, it seems.
Evelyn replied with a raised finger, before looking to the side and gazing upon the beautiful pyramids that glinted in the moonlight.
I just wish it wasn't as often these days. What I'd give to go back to when we weren't so stressed, tired, and conflicted.
Evelyn quietly muttered to that last note, in turn making Void tilt his head.
I guess on that notion, I should let you know that even if I may not show it towards him, I really do and truly love Atlas. I know it seems like he's just annoying me, but when you're stuck with him in a relationship for that long, you just start to feel like an old married couple, I suppose.
Evelyn explained with a slow turn back to Void.
Then you got your brother as the third wheel that adds a whole other wrench into that chaotic fray. You know, these discussions, all of it, you know how it is.
Evelyn continued before playing with her hands in a calm gesture.
Look, I guess what I'm rambling through and trying to say is that I fear if these arguments continue between me, Cor, and Atlas, it'll just drift us apart. Even if it feels like Atlas himself may, I don't know, hate me deep within.
With his face dropping to the expression that could only convey the word, really, Void spoke up to help ease that sense of thought. Evelyn, Atlas doesn't think that way. When I went with him to Leo, he told me that you were the most important thing in his life, and claimed that all he wanted to do was make sure you were happy one day. Void revealed, causing Evelyn to give a curious stare behind her mask.
That doesn't sound like something my Atlas would say. Are you sure you weren't hearing things?
She asked, leaving Void the nod. I'm not one to lie, Evelyn. I'm not 10 anymore. Void answered, leaving Evelyn to lower her head and ever so slightly smile.
It's still kind of hard to believe that little shit became you. But I'm not complaining, Sweets.
Nodding this, Void rested himself against the pillar in a deeper slope until hearing Evelyn say another thing that caused him to perk right back up.
If what you say is true, it's still hard to believe that he still loves me after all this time. He fell for a beautiful geisha dancer of Salvaheim, but still sticks with the washed up, ugly, and scarred walking respirator. It's just hard to believe, you know?
With his face falling to that of disbelief, Void stood to his feet and began speaking again. Ev, don't tell me you actually view yourself like that. Void asked with a squint as he approached and knelt down to his sharp-tailed friend.
It's the truth, Void. It's the truth. I can't even breathe on my own without needing this life support. I'm a former shell of what I used to be. I can't even go 5 minutes without this damn visor covering my face.
Evelyn explained as she tapped her clear lavender mask. No, what you just said there, that is a lie. Void expressed before pointing his finger forward and tapping it on Evelyn's forehead. Beauty is always hindered by one's perspective. Everyone is so quick to judge those on the outside, but the truth is that beauty resides in here. Void explained while adjusting his finger down to point at Evelyn's heart. Beauty is defined by the heart and soul. It's who you are as a person, your interests, your likings, what you do in life that truly calls to others who view you as friend, family, and a lover. Beneath the scars, Evelyn, we all see for who you are. You're still the same gorgeous soul from all those years back, and I can safely say that Atlas sees that. Void expressed as Evelyn smiled from behind the mask with a happy yet sad pair of eyes. That, my friend, that is love. Maybe that whole quote on your scars making you pretty and stronger holds more merit than you'd like to admit. Void finished, leaving Evelyn to shake her head with a blushing smile.
It appears you also became wise, little one. Thank you.
Standing back up, Void held out his hand in which Evelyn took confidently. With a tug, the smaller spark helped her back upon her feet, leaving them both to shake on it in gratitude. Well, I try. Let's consider this as a bonding exercise, after all the crap young me put you through, I suppose. Void expressed with a chuckle, leaving Evelyn to slightly giggle in response.
I'll accept it as such, sweets. I can't express how much your words have just meant to me right now.
Evelyn thanked again, with Void letting go of her hand and shrugging as a response. Just wanted to help. Maybe when all this is over, you and Atlas can settle down in Aurora. Void suggested, making Evelyn think for a moment.
We have discussed the idea of settling down one day. Getting married. Having children. I'll talk to him about it.
Evelyn assured with her continuous smile that Void always found to be comforting. Even at a young age, Void always saw Evelyn as a big sister type figure. He had never truly realized that till he thought her to be dead. Yet, it wasn't long until the moment was shattered by what they had came there for, as the sands around the pyramids suddenly erupted to life. Exploding from the ground in the distance arose the titan-sized form of dark matter conductor Ladon. The monster that had taken form was as if a snake had been crossbred with a centipede. Its skin was dark, muddied water yellow brown, and had hundreds of sharp glowing lemon-hued crystals that pulsated with energy down its back. The beast's head didn't have eyes, rather it was just a massive gaping maw that had rows of sharp dagger-like teeth that rotated down till reaching the back of the monster's throat. Glowing saliva pooled from its chasm of a mouth that hit the sand in a wet and disgusting force that even the sparks winced towards. With a soul-rattling roar that shook the red sands, Void and Evelyn stumbled from this deafening blowback, yet watched the beast on as it proceeded to rise in and out of the sands. It was almost like a dolphin maneuvering through the waves, Void thought. However, with each leap it made, its body continued to trail behind in an arched shape, seemingly to never end. Rising up with its unnaturally long body, the kaiju-sized Goliath went up and attempted to bite down upon the center pyramid's pointed top. As it extended forward with bulging teeth, the beast crunched down hard, but recoiled due to the stone's density. With a few teeth shattering and pyramids still intact, Ladon swayed his building-sized head back and bellowed with a cry that revealed the conductor's location. To the spark's dismay, it had been within the back of the monster's throat. With another ear-splitting call, The Ladon dove itself back into the sands, dragging its unfathomably long form through the terrain until disappearing below the red depths. The only way the Sparks could see its form now was through the lump of sand ominously swimming below the surface like a shark hunting its prey. The creature was much bigger than Yaru, thicker and downright horrifying. Unlike the two Primordios, this Leviathan seemed to have no thoughts, just to survive and attack whatever it wished. For to the Sparks' dismay, they watched as a herd of camels in the distance were suddenly engulfed by the sand, devoured by the beast below within the fraction of a second. The beast the locals dubbed as the Hebai. Hey, you want to hear a riddle? Void asked with a shaken tone as he stared at where the camels once stood.
Sure.
Evelyn quietly replied as Void watched the mass of sand slither out of view. I cannot hear or even see, but I sense light and sounds there may be. Sometimes I end up in a hook, or even deep into a book. What am I? Void choked out while placing his hands on his hips in a disbelief state.
A worm?
Evelyn asked, as she too couldn't take her sight away from what the conductor had become. Yeah, a worm. And that, my friend, is the biggest worm I have ever seen. Void sputtered with a point towards the moving mound that surrounded the pyramids in a circling formation. For a good while, the two Sparks just paced and discussed their options on what they could possibly do in this unfathomable situation, wondering just how to approach something as large as this predicament.
Okay, got any ideas?
Evelyn asked as she leaned herself against one of the old ancient pillars with her arms crossed. You're asking me? You're the one who, according to Core, specialized in making that thing. Void responded to this ask as he too leaned against one of the pillars.
Only in the power cell aspect, not to the beast form.
She claimed with a demanding stare to coincide.
I brought you along because you claimed to have been a snake goddess. I would have figured that you'd have any tips on taking down something possibly similar.
Evelyn briefly reasoned the Void, who just gave his own side-eyed shrug. Okay, that's a fair assumption. But I had a lot of help when dealing with that whole ordeal. Jida was there, Nock was there, and, oh yeah, forgot to mention, there was another giant snake on our side. Void went on, trying to catch Evelyn up to speed. But as you can see, there's no big ally snake here. Void sarcastically claimed the obvious, before staring back forward towards the moving mound of sand. This is why I suggested that we all go instead of just us two. Void finished his side of reasoning with a gesture towards the beast below the sands. Well, you may not have a large snake on your side, but you'll have an extra pair of trusted hands. A voice suddenly called from behind that both Void and Evelyn whirled their heads towards. To Evelyn's surprise and Void's utter dismay, they bear witness to the sight of both Jida and Jet standing side by side in the moonlight. Jet had his fists prepped on his hips, while Jida stood with a swaying orange cloak in the wind. Good afternoon, Mr. Novison, and salutations to you too, Miss Scorch. Jet greeted with a smile and wave, while Jida approached with a stern but adamant set of steps. Her face was one Void knew all too well. It was the look that would take anything but no for an answer. It was the brows furrowed and eyes set straight with a flat mouth that gave it away. What are you doing here? Void demanded to know, with widened eyes and a clenched set of teeth as he now approached his wife. To help you. Jida sharply replied with a tight cross in her arms. To help? How did you guys even get here? You didn't warp, did you? Void asked with a now worried expression before Jet stepped forward and explained. No need to worry, sir. We took the location station from Nock's workshop. The robot expressed with his dorky little screen face that Void had designed for him. A location station? Did Nock finally implement full world travel? The Spark inquired as he gripped Jet on the shoulder. Nope, I implemented it at the request of Mistress Woods. Jet revealed, leaving Void to tilt his head in sudden shock.
Blue, look, that doesn't matter right now. What does is what we saw on the news. I'm not just going to let you tackle this on your own. Not something as big as that. Either of you. Jida explained as she glanced upon Evelyn, who smirked behind her mask.
Adamant one you married there, sweets. I like her fury.
Evelyn expressed, dousing fuel to Jida's fiery choice and reasoning. Freckles, we've talked about this. You're literally carrying a baby. I don't want you fighting, especially when it comes to giant monsters. Void exclaimed, only for Jida to smirk and brush her hair aside. Who said I needed to be on the front lines? She expressed as her skin illuminated with the light of many constellations. I can use my abilities in other ways than just throwing punches, Blue. I've learned a lot since our early adventures. Jida continued with a smirk that left Void feeling both unsurprised but strained all the same. I know you have, but... Void grumbled, only to be met with a splash of sand to the back of his head. With a flick of her wrist, Jida had warped a portion of sand from the ground to the back of Void's skull, showing off what she'd like to call projectile warping. If it gets bad, I can pull some heavy rocks from the ground and damage the creature from a distance. It doesn't involve me being close or warping myself in any way, shape, and form. I can just chill right here while you three do the dirty work. Jida explained, gesturing towards both Void and Evelyn, as well as Jet.
Wait, the robot can fight?
Evelyn asked as she glanced upon Jet's blue and orange body. If I may explain, I'm programmed with all sorts of fighting capabilities. Examples being karate, taekwondo, fencing, kung fu, guerrilla warfare. Jet rambled on before Void bopped the side of his head in a gentle tap. She gets it, Jet. You don't need to gloat about all the movies I downloaded into your hard drive, said the Spark as he released a sigh and turned back to face the pyramids, specifically the larger middle of which that glinted with whitish pink in the moonlight. Thinking for a moment, the Spark ever so lightly tilted his head and recalled to how the beast tried biting into the pyramid's top, seemingly wanting to get inside for one reason or another. Void then had a thought. Perhaps the reason the beast was so adamant about the pyramids was due to there being something inside them. Perhaps something to feed upon. Perhaps a form of matter. Hey Jet, think you could run a scan on those pyramids? Try and detect if there's any matter source or something powerful inside. Void asked before taking a small chunk of metal off his matter extractor and lodging it inside the side of Jet's neck. Use a piece of this tech to adapt it into your scans, he asked while the robot replied with a nod and flashing a array of orange screens. Upload complete. Scanning, Jet said as he stared upon the pyramids, antenna now flashing with glowing beeps and all.
What are you doing?
Evelyn asked while Jida approached and stood beside her husband. The Ladon, Hebai, whatever you want to call it, was attempting to bite its way into the pyramid. I have a sneaking suspicion that there might be. Before Void could finish his speculation, Jet shouted aloud with an almost eureka-type expression. By Matira, the pyramids! Within their stone is tons of...
Examining data term.
amber matter, crystallized form both light and dark, prime ripe to be harvested. Jet exclaimed to the curiosity of both Void and Jida, but to the absolute shock of Evelyn.
Hardened matter? Preserved?
She asked, leaving Jet to nod with a thumbs up. If I were to take a guess, my friends, the ancient Egyptians must have considered this stone as a great artifact to be worshipped. Perhaps that is why the Grand Pyramids were constructed, in order to preserve these sacred findings. Jet theorized as he projected a hologram of an array of sharp, glowing hot pink crystals that resided deep inside the pyramid's core.
That explains why she's circling them. It's hungry for energy, to grow bigger and stronger.
Evelyn expressed before patting Jet's shoulder.
Not a bad robot you built here, little one.
She finished, as Void took a step forward, having a newfound thought that seemed to be both stupid, yet entirely plausible. If that's the case, then I have an idea. But chances are you probably won't like it. Void announced with hesitancy as he looked back to his wife, who gave a confused but curious stare in response.
You're gonna blow up the Grand Pyramid?
Jida exclaimed through a radio speaker upon the side of Jet's head, in complete disbelief as Void, Evelyn, as well as Jet himself all left through a star-shaped portal upon the pyramid's side. Not the entire thing, Freckles. We're just gonna be shaving the top off. It'll be like opening a wine bottle for someone who's in need of a Friday night drink. Void explained as he and the other two at his side began to ascend the chiseled formation of the pyramid, going all the way till reaching the top.
Wouldn't you prefer it if I were to just warp the amber out into the open?
Jida asked as they reached the very top.
No. To pull that amber from the ground would mean a loss in valuable energy that's infused within its roots. I'd like to extract some of its usage after we deal with our big friend.
Evelyn explained as she opened her chest cavity and pulled out a set of small purple sticky bombs.
Help me plant these.
She asked before tossing some of them to Void and Jet.
As you wish.
The robot obliged while Void simply nodded. Once the top is off, it'll hopefully attract our big dark matter friend and distract him enough to get a good old shot on him. Be out cold, we extract it, bada bing bada boom, we're good. Void explained as the three began to place bombs down one by one. While doing this, Jet began to sing a little tune that left the two Sparks and Jida from afar to smile. Time to do some sketchy shit, doo-dah, doo-dah. Hope to get away with it, oh the doo-dah day. The robot went on as Jida decided to then speak telepathically to Void instead of through the speaker. You know, this crazy and, may I add, illegal scheme is giving me vibes back to our early adventures. Traveling, sharing a laugh, feeling scared. Jida rambled while sitting perched on a sandstone pillar a ways off. You're telling me. I just wish I wasn't so stressed. Void replied, still sounding tired as such from back at the restaurant. Honey, you know you don't have to do this if you really don't want to. If I knew how much this would have affected you, I wouldn't have pushed. Jida expressed with a nervous tone that Void quickly brushed off. Hey, don't beat yourself up over it, Freckles. Like you said, this is my choice. And I think I'm just gonna power through it. Void went on with a growing sense of confidence in his heart. Two of these things are dealt with, and I'm starting to realize that you can't really quit halfway through a marathon. Void added as he placed more of the bombs down in a neat pattern. Are you positive? You still sound a little unsure in your words. Jida replied while Void placed the last of his bombs down, proceeding to then stand back and crack his metallic back. Although I'm still going to be worried throughout the process, my soul is whispering in my ear to do this. So, that's what I'm going to do. And besides, I'm not going to let a giant worm eat its way through this world. Void finished, leaving Jida to nod and smile from afar. You're always putting others before yourself, you know. And I've always loved that about you. Jida expressed with an affectionate tone and smile as she watched the spark from afar. Well, it's just my code, I suppose. Sparks defended those who couldn't for many years, and that mentality just runs through my veins. No matter how big the threat is, I'm always going to do what I can to stop it. Void expressed on his own terms before looking up towards the moon and letting the light shine upon him. You're going to be an amazing father. I hope you realize that. Jida asked, in turn making Void quietly smile. Well, that's all we can hope for, right? Joked the spark, leaving Jida to roll her eyes from behind her hood. Just you wait. I can already see it. Not too far from now, yeah? Jida said with a loving tone as Void just chuckled and brushed himself off. Yeah, not too far now. He mentioned before Evelyn spoke up. Alright, all bombs are set. Let's get out of blast range. She exclaimed while bringing forth what appeared to be a missile out from in between her tail spikes. I'll see you on the front lines. Void expressed before cutting his communication and turning back towards Evelyn and Jet. Together, the three of them descended back down the side of the pyramid until resting atop its middle sector. Craning their sights back up, they all watched as small purple indicator lights glinted off the pyramid's top, signifying that detonation was ready to commence. This might be one of the most crazy things I've ever thought of, but as long as the people are safe in the end, I don't really care. Void mumbled as Evelyn prepared to start the light show.
Agreed. Best keep your head low, little boys, because we're about to brew a storm in 3, 2, 1.
With a click of a button in her palm, the top of the pyramid ignited to life in a massive purple flame, being accompanied with a powerful boom. As smoke and light erupted out, the entire top crest of the pyramid was reduced to a large hole with nothing but dust and flying bricks in its absence. Ducking down, the three sparks felt the stone and rubble blow past their heads as the last of the pyramid top broke away from view. Once all was cleared, a sudden shine of visible pink light illuminated outwards as a pulsating mystic haze that quickly caught the attention of the ones who had opened the doorway.
There it is.
Evelyn exclaimed as they were all entranced within the fiery pink glow that slowly dissolved back into a gentle light to the crystallized matter inside. Looks like its essence had been pent up in there for a while. Void suggested as the three slowly stood to their feet and eyed the massive chasm of light that sparkled with raw matter energy.
This is really going to help boost the reformattor's fuel spikes. Hopefully Core finishes the last of the repairs tonight. After that, one more conductor and we're set.
Evelyn rambled with a smile before Jida suddenly boasted through her speaker in Jet's build.
Guys, heads up. I think you just rang the dinner bell.
She exclaimed, just as the sound of rumbling sand began to make itself known from behind. Rolling around and knowing full well as to what was approaching, the three atop the pyramid watched in tense anticipation as the sand below began to rumble and arise with muffled roars. Kneeling down, Void deployed his battle mask, Jet turned his arms into arm cannons, and Evelyn readied her rocket tail. I gotta wonder, if the conductors landed in these specific locations like a magnet, would that mean Leo, Aurora, and wherever the last one is were drawn to the power source like this? Void inquired as he glanced at Evelyn, who just stared on intently.
Knowing this world's M levels, chances could be that there would be an entire caverns of this stuff just waiting to be discovered. Perhaps somewhere deep below those two cities, more amber matter resides.
Evelyn theorized as the massive energy within the pyramid continued to shimmer with power. Like a whale leaping from splashing waves, the conductor roared with a hungered fury as it rose up from the moonlit maroon sands in a powerful display. Although moving slowly due to its larger-than-life size, the beast, with its insectoid-like legs, began to circle the large pyramid, wrapping its body around the structure as though it were a python constricting its prey, until at last, the beast readied itself upon an upright form above the chasm and grumbling with hunger. Well, that's not a pleasant sight to store into my memory banks. Jet whispered as the beast slowly loomed overhead and down towards the large open entryway of what had to be a buffet for the creature. Tira's might, you one ugly slob. I thought Yaru was nasty. Void mumbled as the creature illuminated with a yellow bioluminescence.
Come on, you overgrown slug. Open wide.
Evelyn muttered as she aimed the rocket in her tail towards the beast. With a nasty snarl, the creature's circular maw began to open wide with rotating teeth, as it appeared to start sucking in strands of energy from out of the crystals deep within the pyramid. As its teeth and esophagus opened to consume, they could all make out the conductor's cell within, looking to be acting as though the creature's uvula. Boom. Evelyn called as the missile shot from her tail. Within the fraction of a second, the quickly speeding explosive charged up and ignited to life within the beast's mouth. Recoiling back with an ear-deafening cry, the massive worm fell backwards in a violent display of agony. Teeth flew from its mouth, chunks of matter and skin burned away, all up till it landed dramatically into the left side of a neighboring pyramid, nearly destroying it where it stood. Good shot, Ev! Let's get in and extract it before shit really hits the fan. Void called out as he deployed his wings and blasted towards the fallen dark matter beast. Igniting a pair of thrusters on his shoulders, Jet reached out and took Evelyn in his hands, proceeding to soar after Void in her sudden surprise. Whoa! She called out as the robot contorted his body to act as a makeshift, weaponized jetpack. However, as though it seemed like this would have been easy, everything quickly turned on a dime. As the sparks neared, the massive worm's broken apart mouth suddenly heeled back over with frightening speed, which halted the three mid-air. Wait, no! She bellowed as both the sparks stared on in frightened shock.
What the hell happened? You hit that thing square in the face!
Jida called through Jet's speakers as the creature rose back up and set its sights upon the sparks.
Damn it! Its regenerative abilities have become much faster. These pyramids, the sands, everything in this area is being fueled by the amber. No wonder it got this big that quickly. The pyramids are like a beacon of power.
Evelyn shouted in a frightening realization as she contorted her hands into two arm blasters.
We're gonna need to extract it from within.
She cried as the creature's crystals began to heat up with energy, being accompanied by a forming rune at the base of the beast's bladed chasm of a mouth. Oh, that's great to know. Void muttered as the so-called Hebai instigated the second strike.
Move! Void shouted in a panic as the massive creature unleashed a spiraling yellow nova beam from its jaws. With Void going to the right and Evelyn maneuvering to her left, the two sparks flew out of the way from the beast's powerful attack that struck the ground in a sun-hazed blow. As Ladon's nova beam stung the ground with fury, the sand that was ferociously ignited had actually turned to raw glass from its intense heat. By Matira! Void cried as the two sparks soared and evaded from the beast as it now swung its head from left to right and blasted away at whatever it pleased. Patches of sand were glassed, old ancient structures that had been half buried were sliced apart, and even chunks of the pyramid were blown away, revealing even more of the large crystal underneath. Amidst this chaos, Jaida's eyes suddenly widened to the sight of this yellow blasting energy heading right in her direction. Standing up and then leaping down from the pillar, the fire wielder gently warped herself into a stumbling safety roll as the beam of power swung above her head and destroyed the pillar and upper structure of the architecture she had been mounted upon. Protecting her stomach and rolling out of blast range with a somersault, Jaida slid across the sandstone before getting back up with a grunting kneel. Catching her breath with stunned eyes, she looked down and pat her belly in relief before turning back to the chaotic sight that looked to be a kaiju film come to life. Stay out of blast radius! Void shouted to Evelyn as he soared behind the beast and brought forth his two electrical arm hooks. Swinging them down with strands of energy wires trailing back to the spark's forearms, Void lodged his weapons to the back of the so-called Hebai and yanked himself down with a charged, electricity-filled kick. With the force of a lightning strike, Void smashed his left metal heel into the glowing stones that rested upon the beast's back, shattering them with an intense recoil of energy. As the crystallized spine plate shattered apart, Void was nearly vaporized by his own attack. For once the yellow stone was broken, a strand of nova beam erupted outwards from the wounds. As Void was practically thrown back into the air from these attacks, he redeployed his wings while the creature howled in absolute anguish to this sudden form of power.
Void, are you alright?
Evelyn called in dismay as the creature began to rapidly descend back into the sands below. Barely. I thought I was going to be blind duck there for a second, he replied, just as the monster shot itself back out like a dolphin bridging the water gap. With its bladed jaws wide, the massive conductor attempted to eat the two sparks, but they were quick to evade upwards from the rows of dagger-like teeth that spun at a dangerous velocity.
Matira's might!
Evelyn shrieked as she blasted into the creature's mouth with her arm cannons alongside a set of turrets that sprouted from Jed himself. Joining into the crossfire, Void opened his chest cavity and unleashed all of his rockets into the beast's mouth. In response, the Ladon bellowed in a distressing call as its gums and teeth were shattered apart, but it was quick to recover as it rapidly healed back over in a slimy display of ooze. Damn it, Ev. I know you said you wanted to preserve that amber, but I think we're gonna have to destroy it. This thing is healing way too quickly. Void exclaimed to his ally as the monster dove back into the sands, igniting yellow to life once again.
Damn it. As much as I hate to admit it, you're right. All that amber within the pyramid is acting as an energy spire for the conductor. Such a waste of resources, though.
Evelyn expressed through a conflicted tone as the visible form of yellow light glowed from beneath the sand. Suddenly, like a rapid fire, beams of energy erupted out in short bursts, popping in and out from below like boat-sized pistol shots. Watch your 6s, 7s, and 8s! Void cried out as both him and Evelyn began to soar around like trapped flies in a house to avoid the onslaught from below. Chida, bit of a step back in plans. Can you actually tear the crystals from the pyramid? It's acting as some kind of healing totem for the creature. Void called through his cosmic electricity that Jida heard within an instant. Yeah, I can do that. Just give me a second to focus my energy. she replied before making her way to the center square of the sandstone she had rested upon. Going back and forth from geyser-shaped blasts of power, the two sparks continued to dance through the air with stress strain up until Void slipped up by just a few inches of death's door. Bursting from the ground came another strand of power, but this one, to the dismay of Void, clipped the right side wing of his body, instantly making the spark fall and crash hard into the side of the largest pyramid.
Void!
Evelyn bellowed in dismay as she quickly sorted herself down to aid her fellow spark. Alright, Chida, you haven't really done much in almost a year, but you got this. Just tear an ancient set of rocks out of the pyramid and destroy them. Chida said to herself as she watched the two sparks crash upon the pyramid side. Just a set of large rocks. Building-sized rocks. She mumbled before standing tall and breathing in. Resting her arms and dragging her foot around in a circle, the cosmic fire wielder closed her eyes and focused upon the constellation patterns in her subspace field, following its forms until sensing the glowing pink outline of the amber within the pyramids. Bingo, she said, while beginning to focus strictly upon their essence. The power that radiated off them was akin to Void's, eerily similar and powerful, only adding more truth to what his species were truly made of. From around Jida's vision, little lights that rested in her pattern space slowly began to drift upon the amber's energy, connecting to it as Jida slowly but surely manipulated her surrounding reality to her will. They're just big rocks. You can move big rocks, she said to herself as her stomach burned with a firm purplish blue power surge. That hurt. Void groaned as he eyed his shattered wing with a strained stare.
Are you okay? Do you need assistance?
Evelyn asked as Jet's cubed head arose from behind hers, being connected to a long rubber hose that was once his arm.
Master, it appears you have been damaged. I believe you are in need of medical assistance,
Jet expressed as Evelyn slowly began to help him stand. Minus a possible concussion, I think I'll be alright. Void groaned just as the large monster arose once again from behind. Like a predator stalking its prey, the creature with slow movements opened its maws in a wide, grotesque gesture to the absolute horror to the ones upon the pyramid. Ah, shit, Void muttered. Yet, right as they were about to take off towards the sky, an echoing rumble and crumble made its presence known with an audibly loud zap from behind. The next thing the group realized was that above the massive conductor teleported out the sharp set of building-sized crystals, warping from inside the pyramids to the outside in a burst of orange light. Chida had actually done it.
By Matira!
Evelyn cried out, bear witnessing to the enormous spectacle that was on display. Falling down with energy leaving behind their rooted out lower halves, the once pink glow in their forms faded to that of a dour white downpour of shattering crystal that all lodged and stabbed into the Ladon from above. Recoiling back and roaring in sheer pain, the large beast began to sway itself from side to side once again, realizing what it had been searching for was now depleting at a rapid pace. The so-called Hebai could sense it. Months' worth of delicious matter energy was fleeting into the wind. Therefore, its advanced healing speed and ability to charge its powers faster than normal went with it. Chida, I love you, Void yelled through his cosmic electricity whilst brushing off Evelyn. On the other side of the blood sands, Chida just slumped to the ground in a tired breath, but gave a woozy thumbs up in response from afar, although feeling as if she were about to pass out. It's vulnerable! Hurt! Move out of the way! Void exclaimed as he began to charge up his energy to the sudden surprise of Evelyn and Jet.
It is, but what are you doing?
She asked, but Void was already making his move. With a surge to his boots, the spark kicked off the pyramid and launched himself towards the conductor in a massive power leap. As he neared halfway through the air, Void proceeded to activate and then shoot out his hooks, latching them upon the fading gems adorned upon the beast's back, to swing around like a man from the wild. Without warning, Void detached and then retracted his hooks around the creature's maws, and then to the shock of Evelyn, Jet, and Jida, pulled himself inside, only for the monster to snap its jaws closed right after. Void!
One!
All three shouted in unison to the horrific sight. At once, Jida got upon her feet and began to sprint as fast as she could to the scene, while Evelyn and Jet took to the skies and rushed the slowly swaying monster. Yet, as panic struck at its highest, a sense of awe and relief quickly washed over those feelings, for within the monster's maws and beneath its head pulsated to life a familiar blue glow. Sparks of light sputtered from the beast's mouth as it looked to cough and wheeze. All while the blue light got brighter and more vibrant with each pulse given off. Stopping in their strides, Evelyn looked on in utter confusion, while Jida's fear-stricken face turned to that of a gritty smirk. "Attaboy, Blue! Show 'em what you're made of!" she cried while fist-bumping the air. With one pulse and then another, the monster's mouth began to smoke and fizzle. It tried to roar the spark out, hack him to the sands, but it had already been too late for the once hungry so-called Hebai. With one last sharp and exploding pulse, the monster's razor-sharp teeth-filled head exploded into a spray of disgusting yellow and black goo, all due to the bright electrical power surge that Void expelled from his horns and body. It almost looked as though a lightning-sized bomb erupted to life for all to see. As the massive head of the beast fell and charred away, it left Void to instantly fall mid-air. However, now with the yellow conductor in hand, the spark activated his matter extractor and with relative ease, absorbed the yellow aura within its confines. "Gotcha!" he called out. It was done. The massive conductor had been contained. "Hang on!" Evelyn cried out as she and Jet quickly soared around the falling, fading body of the Ladon, but soon caught Void by the waist. The spark was, to Evelyn's disgust, covered in the monster's glowing, nasty, and odorous saliva. But overall, was just thankful he was alive. "Are you insane?" she asked, before Jet and them gently descended to the partially glassed, sandy lands below. According to Knock once, yeah. The smaller spark answered with a smirk, as the three of them crashed and rolled to the ground below them. The fall wasn't what one would call smooth. Rather, it was quite awkward. Void and Evelyn barreled over one another, while Jet detached and spiraled out of control, ultimately ending with his head in the sand and body sticking out with waving legs. "Void!" Jida called out as she finally made it towards the sparks in a stumbling set of steps. "Jida!" The spark called back as his spouse knelt down and helped him stand to his feet. "Jesus Christ, are you crazy?" she asked while wiping away slime from the spark's face. "No, just determined," Void replied as Evelyn got up and pulled Jet free from the sands behind them. "Not even a few years ago, you were petrified of heights. Now you're leaping in the monsters' mouths without warning. Promise me you won't do that again," Jida asked before hugging Void tightly, making the scene look as though a blue and orange ghost were embracing because of their cloaks. "You're one to talk about promises, Miss Traveling to Salvaheim after I said not to," Void replied while retracting his mask and pulling back his hood. "Whatever," Jida replied as she did the same with her hood, albeit with a bashful look in her eyes. Approaching from behind with Jet at her side, Evelyn spoke aloud to get the married pair's attention, wanting to discuss the certain glowing orb they had gone through all that trouble for.
"I wish to not intrude, but did you get it?"
she asked, making Void smirk and hold up the glowing conductor in his arm plate.
"Thank you, Tira. Good. Good work, all of us, truly. Truly was a bonding exercise, as you would call it, Void. And I didn't know you could use your power in such a way,"
Evelyn expressed, while then looking at Jida.
"Especially when being pregnant, no less."
Smiling with a bowing nod, Jida shrugged her shoulders before responding in her own tired way. "I blame it on the contraction pains," she jokingly expressed while rubbing the back of her head. "Actually, I think it finally came back to me," Void suddenly stated, leaving Jida to curiously stare and for Evelyn to just raise her eyebrows. Hebai, a great worm that ruled the sands in Soul Egyptian mythology. I remember hearing about it when I was watching the History Channel one night. The folks here must have thought it to be the legend in the flesh. Don't know why that came back to me just now, but hey, there you go. Void answered the prolonged question, leaving Evelyn to think and then just nod her head.
Interesting. Still, great work, both of you.
she expressed with a smile before Void opened a portal back to the reformator.
What about me?
Jet asked as he slowly rolled up with the wheels below his feet.
Yes, of course. You too. But let's get going now. Seems like the feds are here.
Evelyn exclaimed as she gestured towards police cars and helicopters in the distance. Yeah, we get those a lot. Let's go. Void expressed as he took Jida by the hand and walked through the portal to head back to what was at this point HQ, with Evelyn and Jet following close behind. Sticking the matter extractor's pointed ends into the central control deck, Void pulled the trigger and released the second to last conductor into the large vat of matter. By his side stood Core, Jida, Jet, and Evelyn, who all glanced up to the positive-sounding reverb into the reformator, now shining a beautiful yellow haze in response. I really love that sound. Jida quietly muttered with a smile as the entire ship illuminated with the most light it had seen in the last 3 days. The blues and oranges within the walls glimmered with power as reconstructed engines and power cells revved with a satisfying churn in energy. It was clear that Core and them were nearing completion.
Excellent work. We couldn't have come this far without your help.
Core thanked both Void and Jida with an accompanied placement of his hands upon their shoulders.
For too long we have struggled with the word uncertainty within these metal walls. But now I'm positive that the survival of our race is a definitive fact.
Core expressed with a positive attitude before looking back to the vat of matter with pride.
With your world's energy flowing into our machine, we'll have the right amount of data and resources to, in theory, spark our race back to life.
Finished the older Novason with a grateful attitude towards his brother and sister-in-law, while saying a pun in the process. Yeah, that's awesome, Core. But may I ask, where's my axe? Void questioned with a raised hand to his brother.
The gift won't be ready till tomorrow morning. When you inevitably return, I assure you that what will be waiting will be worthwhile.
Core teased with a smile and small fist bump upon his little brother's shoulder. Okay, you've always been the mysterious type, Core. Whether it be making pasta at random or doing some tinkering when I'm not looking. Happy to say you haven't changed all that much. Void replied as he returned the shoulder bump, however, having to hop up to do so.
I know things may seem to be a contrast upon the outside, but I assure you that I'm still your boring science teacher of a brother within. Even if I'm sort of grumpy and hesitant these days.
Core elaborated towards his brother, while Jida just smiled in a blushing manner. You two were so cute together, she said before covering her mouth in a giggling mood.
Cute is a new one for me.
Core responded with a dumb smile on full display. Not for me, Void added while Evelyn turned and left the room.
Say, tomorrow, we'll most certainly be able to find the last conductor. And I'd like to give both Atlas and Evelyn a well-deserved break. Void, if you wish to, would you care to come with me in search of its form?
Asked Core before crossing his arms in a curious gesture. Oh, of course, yeah. Been kind of waiting for you to tag along. Void instantly answered, making the older of the two nod in assurance.
Splendid. After the fact, we can have a celebratory dinner. A big one with you, Jida, and all your other friends. We can eat as I would like to see it. One big family.
Core continued, leaving Void and Jida to gleefully smirk in response. Now that is something I can get behind, the musician boasted aloud while Void agreed. That sounds wonderful. I'd like that. No, I'd actually love that. Nodding and then turning back to the vat of matter, Core began to return to his work, but still spoke a few moments more to the couple.
Very well. I'll be busy here as per usual. If you'd like, you can explore the reformator as per last time. Maybe you could show Jida around.
Core suggested to the merry pair, who looked at one another and gave a shrugging posture for a yes.
Sure. Why the hell not? We'll catch you around, Core. Void expressed with a small goodbye before taking Jida by the hand and venturing forth into the reformatter, along with Jet, who had been silent, slowly rolling behind them as a third wheel of sorts. Smirking with a roll in his eyes, Core went to continue his work, but then found himself glancing at one of the labs at his left-hand side. Within, he could see the forms of both Atlas and Evelyn chatting in what seemed to be a more positive light. For once, it appeared Atlas was smiling for that day, all while Evelyn suddenly embraced him in a tight hug. Core wasn't for certain on what his two friends had been discussing, but it was of no note to him. It was their relationship, not his. Turning back forward, he began to type upon the keypads at his disposal, yet now with the help of small, orange-black tendrils emerging from his fingers. Instead of 8 fingers, he had several, all typing away while an orange flicker of light shimmered within his irises. For a good while, the Spark showed his wife around the reformatter, visiting all the locations he had the day prior, such as the kitchen, the labs, the bedrooms, as well as the aquarium that Jida found to be quite beautiful. Even Jet found a sense of solace while gazing upon the array of different fish from many unseen worlds. But soon enough, the robot turned on his heel and spoke upfront to his creators. "Pardon my departure, but I'm gonna make my way home. My servos are starting to ache and rattle. I'm also in need of a recharge," Jet tiredly mentioned with a dimming face screen, before skating out of the room in swift, heely rolling strides. "Oh, okay. Oh, be safe getting home," Jida called to her creation, but the robot was already long gone. "I hope he didn't feel left out by the lack of compliments," Jida sadly speculated as the married pair began to make their way out of the aquarium and into a blue and orange lit hallway. "Maybe. I swear, he's getting more sentient by the day. It's kinda crazy how much information can reroute a machine," Void replied as the two walked side by side, arm in arm. "How are you feeling, by the way, after lifting a building-sized set of stone?" inquired the electrified crested Spark as they passed by many doors and windows that led into several unknown quarters and testing chambers. "My shoulders kinda hurt, if I'm being honest. It's been a good while since I went as far as that," answered Jida as she gently cracked her neck to the left and then to the right with a resounding and stress-relieving pop. "What about you? Your wing looked to have taken quite the beating." Shrugging with an exhausted tone, Void looked over his shoulder and then back ahead with an almost uncertain face on display. "It'll take a while to self-repair, but I'll manage." After these shared words, the orange and blue star-crossed lovers found themselves to fall into a bit of a silent state. They glanced at their surroundings, seeing spark-like runes emanating along the metal white walls that glimmered with pulsating extravagant power. Soon enough, Jida couldn't take the white noise anymore, and broke the silence between them. "You can still take a step back, Blue. I know what you said earlier, but..." Jida muttered, before Void replied right back. "I know, Jida, but I've made up my mind. There's still one more of those things out there, and if the one we just dealt with was that bad, then I can't imagine what the last one has in store." Void explained with definitive words, while turning his head to look at his glowing-haired beauty. "I'm going with my brother tomorrow, and after that, I'll take my step back and let them finish what they started," Void added, before stopping in his tracks and turning to look upwards upon Jida. "It's clear their mission rests in restoring our species, but mine rests in being with you," Void quietly but happily expressed as he raised one of his metallic mitts up to caress Jida's right-hand cheek. "After tomorrow, my task returns to taking care of you, as well as them," Void went on, now placing his other hand atop Jida's stomach and feeling the warmth of his sparklet emanate towards his fingertips. "I'm growing to trust Core in the other's view. After now spending some time with both Atlas and Evelyn, and the few interactions with my brother, I can see that they're just as nervous as I am, but still the same people I once thought to be dead. I think we're gonna be okay." The Spark calmly elaborated, leaving Jida to smirk in a blushing manner. "I'm glad to hear you found a sense of comfort today. I thought you were gonna bust down crying at the pizza parlor," Jida revealed as she too placed her hand upon Void's right cheek. "Kind of felt like it, not gonna lie," Void said back as Jida leaned her head down and gave him a kiss on the forehead. "Well then, I'm glad to see you're not," she concluded as the two slowly embraced one another in a tight yet silent hold. That was until the sound of a familiar voice called from the end of the hall.
Uncle Void?
Perking up with widened eyes, both Void and Jida turned their heads to the left, seeing none other than Joby, standing there with Gluppy clinging to her back. "Joby?" Void asked as he and Jida turned the gaze upon her. The little girl looked nervous and almost scared. Her face had been scrunched into a sour and anxiety-filled stare. Her legs shook to almost buckle, and her irises were small, filled with a deep wave of uncertainty. In response, the married pair quickly took notice of these details and approached the young girl with an accompanied parental surge of protection. "Hey, are you okay?" Void asked towards his niece, who then proceeded to take a few steps back. "Whoa, hey, is everything alright, sweetheart?" Jida questioned aloud, while Joby just shook her head in response.
I thought I told you. You can't trust them.
The little girl blurted while pulling in her shaken arms.
You can't trust them.
She repeated, leaving Void to raise his hand forward in an attempt to try and calm her down. "Who? We got your note last night. Who can't we trust?" Void demanded to know as him and Jida continued to step closer. Looking over her shoulder and then back at her uncle and aunt, Joby whispered a set of names in a tense breath that made the two of them freeze for a second.
Them. Atlas, Evelyn, Father.
Joby couldn't finish saying the last name. All she could do was turn and beckon her extended family to follow.
This way. I need to show you something.
She exclaimed before turning heel and sprinting around the hall corner. What? Joby, wait! Void called towards his niece as both him and Jida began to follow suit. Kid, hold up! What do you mean? Void continued to ask as a wave of confused anxiety collected into his heart. Joby, wait up! Jida called with a tired breath as she stumbled behind for a few moments. Turning around corner after corner, the married pair did their best to stay behind the tiny purple spark. It was as though she never got tired, didn't even break a sweat. Void's once calm demeanor had now fallen to that of worry. What was about the three sparks that made Joby think this way? Was it something simple like being rude to her? Or perhaps something more? These thoughts ate at Void, while Jida felt dumbstruck to it all. There was something going on, but neither of them knew what. Suddenly halting in their tracks upon one last turn, Void and Jida fell still in absolute awe to what lay in wait. Before their very eyes stood a tall, metal white door that was designed in an arch shape. Power lines of orange and blue coursed up and down its shape, all in odd angles and turns. Spark runes also glinted within chiseled formations that all lined into creases and panels. In a way, the door looked as though to open through an almost puzzle piece form, unlike any other door within the reformator. By this archway stood the scared and nervous Joby, who was glancing between it and the two she had desperately beckoned to follow her.
Please, you need to see this,
she said before turning back to the door and tapping upon a passcode key set at the side of it, having to hop up to even do so. Joby, take a breather. What is it about them that's got you all shaken up? Void asked as he approached and gently turned Joby around by her shoulders. For a moment, the little girl reacted with a violent swing in her arms, but quickly returned back to a neutral state once realizing it had been Void. The uncle of the spark was taken aback for a second. He knew Joby was nervous around people, but she sincerely did not like being touched. In a way, it made his conflicting thoughts arise once more. She was scared, but he didn't know why. Honey, breathe. Jida expressed in a calming, almost motherly tone as she too knelt by Void to comfort the young spark. Raising her hand out, Jida summoned forth a warming wave of energy to the back of her hand then caressing the girl's cheek in a tender formation. "Start from the top. What's gotten you all spooked?" inquired Void as Joby just stared with an uneasy look in her eyes. The best way to describe the look she gave off was that of a cold numbness. Her eyes felt as though to be that of a dead fish. Her mouth quivered in a deep wave of flashing memories and thoughts. Void recognized his look. He had felt it once too. The fear, the uncertainty. He had practically grown up with it, and he wasn't about to let this child, let alone his family members, suffer the same way he did. Whatever she was holding in, Void knew he had to get it out.
It's...
Just as she began, there came a pair of footsteps from behind, along with an accompanied call of Evelyn herself.
Hey, is everything okay over there?
She worriedly asked, as the sounds of Atlas sparked through too.
We heard running up there. You three alright?
Perking up with shrinking irises, Joby, with a wincing face, pushed both Void and Jida away with an unexpected showing of strength. And after that, she just sprinted down the hall, having the look of pure terror on display.
Joby!
Jida called out, as both her and Void quickly got back up with a confused nature in their minds.
Whoa, hey, is she okay? Are you two okay?
Evelyn asked, as Void suddenly spun around and looked at Sparks square in their eyes. "I'm only going to ask this once. You guys aren't doing anything to her, are you?" Void bluntly interrogated, with a worried tone for his niece. In response, the two lovers gave a confused look and replied in a baffled sense of tongue.
What? What do you mean by that?"
Alice inquired, as Jida turned to with a tense stare. "I'm serious. Is something going on between you three and her? This is the third time she's run off when you three are in a room. She's terrified of you guys, but not us. What the hell is going on?" Void demanded to know with a strict and electrified cross in his arms. Eyes widening in realization, both Alice and Evelyn turned to look at one another, and then reset their sights back upon the smaller couple that stood with intense curiosity on display.
Oh, well, to cut the fear factor out, if it's abuse, you're speculating. I can assure you that's not the case.
Evelyn began before taking a seat on her tail once more that curled itself to act as a spring cushion.
You see, Joby is still young. Her mind is developing, and may I remind you, she was created in a lab, not naturally born. You see, we have to, every so often, run some lab tests on her. Tests that she doesn't particularly like all too much.
Evelyn revealed as Atlas began to chime in himself.
You know how it is. Medicine shots, pill taking, long medical examinations. That door there is, essentially where we check on her from time to time. It takes all three of us to just try and keep her calm during those procedures. She really hates us for it.
Atlas added, before resting alongside the wall.
We've all thrown temper tantrums at the doctor's office before in our youth. It's just with Joby, it's a more common event she has to deal with from time to time. She may not see it now, but it's all to maintain her good health.
Evelyn finished, upon seeing both Void and Jida relax. I see. Void stated before looking down the hall where Joby had ran through. Okay, I was getting really worried there for a moment. Thanks for the clarification. Jida said before letting her shoulders slump and body relax.
Trust us. We would never want to harm someone like Joby. She's not only the future, she's the best of all of us on this ship.
Alice expressed before lighting a cigarette to his mouth. For a long moment, everyone was silent in their own thoughts and reasons. All up till Jida winced with a grunt and took hold of her stomach. Perking up, Void reached out and held her stumbling form, with Atlas and Evelyn quickly approaching as well. Whoa, Freckles, you alright? He asked as Jida took a long breath in and then back out. Yeah, just contractions are getting a little bit stronger, it seems. I'm guessing it could be any day now. She speculated through a wincing smile that Void took as a sign that it was time to go. I'm gonna take that as our cue to head out. Sorry for the misunderstanding. Void expressed to both Atlas and Evelyn as he carefully scooped Jida up within his arms.
No, it's alright, sweets. You had every right to assume the worst. Joby may be a flinchy and scared little thing, but we can assure you that we never harm her.
Evelyn expressed as she got off her tail and approached the two soon-to-be parents.
And once again, thank you for your words, Void. It truly meant a lot.
She said with a smile before turning back to face Atlas. Judging by their looks, Void could see that Evelyn had confronted the larger spark about what he had told her. And although silent, he could see that the words shared between them ignited their bond into a stronger state. Don't need to thank me for saying the truth. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Void replied with a small nod towards his two sparks, and then opened a portal and returned back to Nox's workshop. Upon crossing through to the other side and sealing the rift shut, Void turned to Jida and instantly began speaking his mind. You weren't actually having a contraction there, were you? He inquired, as Jida then brushed herself off with a stern gaze. No, I think you as I did could sense that they weren't saying the entire truth. I guess now I'm the conflicted one. Jida stated before taking a seat at her makeshift music station desk. No kidding. I believe what they said was true to a point. I know kids can hate doctors, but the fear in her eyes. I think there's more to it than just simple shots. Void replied before taking a seat on his bedside. Tomorrow when I'm with Core, I'll ask him about it. I'm sure he'd be more willing to open up and tell me the truth. Or maybe he'll just reply with its hard to explain type response. Spinning around in her chair to face her husband, Jida sighed and slumped for a second, seeing the drummer belly as per standard it would seem. So much in finding comfort in it all, I guess. She stated, as Void looked out the window to a gentle snowfall. Don't know for certain, but yeah. Real roller coaster it feels like. The spark expressed as he watched the city go on by without a care or reason to the bigger picture hidden within their woods.